to call the policy committee to order. First item on the, first thing we have to do is actually alter the agenda to include an other at the end. Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
So, motion by Ms. Stokes, second by Ms. Keynes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We have a policy about transfer students to schools. It is in the backup. And any discussion on this? I have two questions. I didn't get a chance to look at the district website, but is the zone list by street on the website as it says? Because it says specific assignment zones shall be reviewed by admin on an annual basis and updated on the district website. Do you know
I
if
don't know,
it's
but
actually
I can double check.
Okay.
It is.
I have seen it on there.
Okay. I think it's just a list of streets, right? Or the street numbers and whatnot, if I remember correctly. All right. The other question I would have is the wording appropriate of the first bullet point, special needs of specifically coded students? And I didn't know whether it should, because that's the way it is in the old policy, which was from 2013. And I didn't know whether it would be appropriate to use other language, like maybe
Special
students with an
education
IEP
students.
or special education students, something along those lines.
I would propose students with disabilities.
Yeah, I wouldn't add IEPs because then you have 504s or behavior plan. So I would just say special need or student with disabilities.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Stokes.
Great, by the way, I think this is great. I think we're finally moving forward where we're listening to what parents are looking for. So I commend you for this. I think it took a long time. I think the one thing that I think we should add would be if they're providing transportation and there's an absentee issue, that they would go back to their original school, just so that we have that covered in the policy.
The transportation is there on the second.
Yeah, it's the absenteeism part. So if they're transporting and they're not getting the students to school and it's causing absentee issues, we should have that in the policy.
She brought up tardiness also. Is that inclusive of tardiness?
I would think that would include, I would say that would.
Tardiness
include
or
absenteeism.
absenteeism. I think spell out tardiness, exactly, because there are two separate issues.
Yeah.
And tardiness is probably the bigger issue that you could relate back to transportation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just think if it's in our policy, if it doesn't happen, we have it to fall back on. Okay, Tracy.
I think, also, I know there's been times where teachers or admin are stuck after school where their kid hasn't been picked up yet. So that's something we gotta think about as well. Because they shouldn't be stuck late for school, late staying with a student that should have been picked up. That normally, if they're at the regular school, they would have taken the bus.
I would think you could put that in the same sentence, so transportation to and from, along with tardiness.
Mr. Clear, go ahead.
So this is kind of just knowing that we're going to be redistricting, how, have we identified the ones that are being done tonight and others? I guess I'm going to be confused because we don't know who's going to be within district or out of district if we can't track the previous ones that are out right now, because all of a sudden they may be in district, so.
So it's always based on space. So when we redistrict, right, and if they are then assigned to a different school, they may, voluntarily request to be kept at the school to finish off their fifth grade. However, it's contingent upon space. Always contingent upon space.
I'm just, especially with the third graders coming up through and in that scenario,
Yes.
with the new school, they may end up at the new school, which they may be great with it, but they may end up at William Allen because now the space has become available that they belong over there or whatnot.
Any other discussion? Do you have a motion to send this to the full board for first reading?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Two.
The ayes have it.
Okay. Agenda, where's the agenda? All right. Other, there is public comment, but seeing no public here. The other is to do a quick look at some reorganization of committees, which is it doctor now, or is it still?
Yeah.
Okay. As our.
Thank you.
As our.
As our Loza.
As our Loza, thank you.
Azarloza, I'm gonna screw that
I thought I
up.
had that.
Loza.
Well, it's great now, and I got it now, but in a week, you're gonna need you to redo it. Azarloza.
This is our current makeup?
Yes. If I may, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. The
So I've just
floor is
given you-
yours.
I've just provided you a diagram of our current structure of committees. So we have our personnel, our building, our finance, our policy, our instruction committee, our special services committee, our discipline committee as needed, and then we have a quarterly 5-year committee, and then we have our monthly all-board committee. I wanted just to kind of like have a visual of our current structure, and then I'm going to have Ms. Vitus pass out the proposed structure of the committees.
Matt, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So I'm noticing it's not on the agenda because there's no other. Are we gonna, when this gets publicized, are we gonna put this back up in there so people that are watching the committee can do it? Okay. Sorry, transparency.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so what you have in front of you is just a restructuring of the committees. And so, for example, when we think about the special services, we have transportation in the special services, in our current special services committee. We have our building committee. I'm proposing we have an operations committee that encompasses transportation, food services, IT, and building, would be all in one committee, all encompassing. Which really lends itself to the infrastructure that we're creating as far as our Director of Operations, who now oversees transportation, IT, facilities, and food services. To the right, you'll see Teaching, Learning, and Student Supports Committee. Right now, we have Special Education under the Special Services Committee. However, I'm proposing that rather than, segregating is not the right word, but I want to make sure that it's inclusive. So when we think about students with disabilities, when we think about our students who are learning English as a second language, they are all under Teaching and Learning and Student Supports. So they would be in this particular committee. This would also encompass discipline, so student behaviors, how are we helping to reshape behaviors, as well as holding students accountable. And then we have our governance committee, which encompasses the policies. This would be the revising and the new policies that we may bring to the board. And then, of course, by New Hampshire law, we are required to have a finance committee that would remain the same. Now, the personnel committee, you might be wondering where that is. So rather than having personnel working as a silo, we are embedding personnel in each of these committees. So if I'm hiring, for example, an IT person, or a facilities manager, the operations committee would be approving that nomination because that is their realm. If I'm hiring a teacher under, and during the Teaching and Learning and Student Supports Committee, it makes sense that this particular committee, who oversees all instruction and teaching and student supports, would then approve the nomination. You wouldn't have anything for governance, but you would have something for finance, right? So, for example, an accountant, I might bring an accountant for a nomination, and it makes sense for the finance committee then, because that's their realm, to approve that nomination. So rather than having personnel sitting on its own on an island, it's really embedded in these committees. And so that's what I'm proposing. And then the next thing that Ms. Vitus will pass out is just the proposed corrections to the policy that outlines exactly this visual.
While she's doing that, I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
So job descriptions would go to the appropriate committee as well, correct?
Exactly.
I can share with somebody. They can share, they get along.
Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, actually, I have an answer on, I have an answer on.
She says nope.
I have an answer on.
Hmm.
And if I may, this is also meant, it's meant to increase efficiency, it's meant to streamline, and again, make sure that things are embedded where they need to be, rather than finding, places or homes for them.
So I know I already had a little bit of a discussion, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. My concern was the discipline. So I know that we had kind of talked about some staff previous to your employment, when students were doing certain things. So when students were to physically attack a student or a staff member, or staff members feeling unsafe. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, you're working on coming up with some kind of outline or however you want to do it. So when September comes, there's a clear guidance throughout all of our district and all of our schools on what's expected with a behavior that, I don't know how to legally say it, but that could have police involvement or whatever. So if there's a weapon, if there's physical harm, that was the reason why we reinstated the discipline committee. So I just want to be clear, that's coming forward, it's just something that you're working on and just fixing, correct?
That is correct. We're going to be creating some uniformity across the district when it comes to that. And not only that, when something of that nature occurs, we would be letting know the school board immediately, the very same day, so that we have open lines of communication with the school board, so that you're aware of what is occurring and matters of that nature.
Thank you, Mr. Pappas.
Sure. Mr. Downs.
Sorry, I'm gonna throw myself and Paul under the bus because we would continue hearing, well, the IEP wasn't followed. Staff was assaulted, but the IEP wasn't followed, so we can't. So what about when that occurs? Well, the IEP wasn't followed, so that's why the staff member was assaulted. It's still, in my eyes, I know in your, that's still, there's no excuse.
So there are so many different hypotheticals that can occur. However, what I would say is we would follow the letter of the law. And my commitment to this school board is that if anything were to occur, you would know the very same day of the incident. And so there would be a process in place, we would follow the letter of the law, and that would be my commitment to the board.
Actually, go ahead.
I understand where you're coming from if somebody is injured, but I just want to be clear that an IEP is a legal binding contract with the federal government. So if an IEP isn't being followed, I think it's bigger than a disciplinary issue. It's an issue with finding out, was it understaffing, was somebody out that day, were they just belligerently not following it? So I don't think that a lot of our behaviors are because of an IEP isn't being followed, because if that's the case, our new superintendent has a lot more work. And if there's a whole thing where special services had a manifestation of a disability, if that IEP tells you how to function with a student and how the behaviors don't happen and it's not followed, the bigger question shouldn't be, is the child held accountable? The bigger question should be, why didn't staff follow a federal guideline legal document that everybody signs? That would be more of the question that I would have. So I just want to make sure that's out there, that IEP is a legal binding contract and should be followed.
Mr. Kamiri, go ahead.
So, I understand the concept of hiring positions in the appropriate realms. How are you going to, nowhere do I see that it addresses what we're doing here tonight for personnel, for instance, the authority of personnel to sign on teachers, and is that going to be carried on in the government, or I guess the Teaching, Learning, Students Supports Committee? Is that, because it's not addressed currently
Yeah.
in
So it's
the
in
rewrite?
it's in the actual board committee structures. I did put,
No, well, I'm looking, the committee shall act on all personnel who
if you
fall.
look at the end of each of the committees, I put the committee shall act on all personnel who fall under this division. So in the operation, and then there's one for teaching and learning, and then there's one for finance. So-
Right, so we approve, the only time that so this meeting, if we approve personnel, does not have to go to full board for approval. So,
It would still need to go to full board. So
So-
anything that is decided in these committees would have to go to full board.
okay, so to my point, right now, currently, Personnel Committee, July and August has the authority to hire all but administrators without full board approval, so we can get contracts signed. In the new layout, all those approvals would still have to go to full board.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, but that's a board decision, right? So the board decides in June, for example, to allow us or allows this board to approve that where, it doesn't need to go to the full board, the personnel committee. So we could, school board makes a decision next year, for example, to allow these particular committees to make that decision as well. So that does not have to go to the full board.
Well, and I guess, so it's a policy committee, or a policy right now, we're looking to change the policy of our committee structure, correct?
Right.
And I don't necessarily disagree with it, it makes sense. I just, again, that one committee but personnel hires custodians currently. So each committee would have to have the ability to hire within their realm in the month of July and August to keep it current, how our current operating ways.
But I might just suggest that we write that language under each of the four.
Right.
The four new committees have the authority, whatever the language says in the current policy, have the authority to approve hires. And again, it's to lock people down quick so that you can move on.
With the exception of administration, right? So
Right.
that because the rewrite doesn't have any of that language in it.
Yes.
So the current, I don't have the current,
Do you know what the policy is that says that?
I'll tell you in a second.
Sorry.
It's the last paragraph. The language goes from the last.
It's the language of,
The old policy number is what I'm looking for.
Yeah. We're under book A, I believe.
Oh, I was looking under,
B,
B, sorry,
should be B.
school board governance and operations, you're right, sorry,
BDE.
yeah,
it's BDE?
board committee structures, yes.
It says Personnel Committee has power to hire new custodians, food personnel, teachers, and paraeducators, and accept resignations for these positions during the months of July and August.
Where is it? Can you tell me where it is?
BDE,
Yep.
and it's under personnel.
Is it the first, second?
So second grouping, under the heading personnel.
And it's struck, the language is struck out of the
Okay,
rewrite,
yeah.
that's why I'm bringing it up.
So we'll just need to craft some language for each of the committees to allow them to hire those positions.
Oh.
Ms. Stokes, did you have something to add?
So, I guess I'm not reading it the way you guys are. So you said in that second paragraph, under BDE, under personnel,
Third paragraph.
third,
It's right above where it says.
okay, all
instruction.
right, so it's the third paragraph.
The end of the page,
And you can see it on the handout that you were given tonight. It's crossed out, but it's second paragraph on page 2.
So I guess my question,
Go ahead.
okay, so I guess my question is, if we look at the other policies, and I'm not saying this isn't something that should be in there, so please know that, but we say every single time that we have other policies that says the committees don't get to make any recommendations and it has to go to a full board vote. Just because it's in here, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't follow that, it goes against other policies that we have that says the committees cannot make any decision. So I guess the question that I have, and I don't know, legal counsel wise, I don't know how to put that, but I mean, it clearly states in many other policies that the committees are not allowed to make any decisions. How does that work? Are we, just because it's in there, do we have the right to do that? Or should we just be making in June and July special full school board meetings? Like, I just want to make sure we're not going against
Do
something.
you,
So-
do you want to answer that, or, because I can do.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, you might.
We can do whatever we want with policy, so I mean, if our policy says the personnel committee has that power, then that has that power. The purpose is to not have to have an individual hired as a teacher, a paraeducator, a food service worker, custodian, wait 30 days for the whole school board to meet to approve them. The committee has that power so that they can approve them and get them a contract as quickly as possible and not lose them to another district.
can I just respond? I get that whole concept. I just want to make sure that there's other policies that don't align with that. So I'm just thinking we need to align our policies together. So I'm not saying this one's wrong, I'm saying there would be other policies that we'd have to adjust to that, is all I'm saying. Because just because it says it in one policy doesn't mean other policies that says the board can't do those kind of functions.
My understanding is no other policy in the entire policy book says that the personnel committee does not have that power. So,
Okay.
Mr. Cruzman?
And if I remember correctly, in May and April, or April, we went over it. May, we double checked with everybody if they wanted everything changed as a full board, and we made some kind of vote. I know it was to start a little bit earlier, but we double checked with everybody that everybody was still comfortable, and took a vote to make sure everybody was still comfortable with that. And we start, like I said, to start a little bit earlier, and we went on it. I think if we continue that policy, hey, everybody's still comfortable in April, May we bring it up, anybody got any objections, just a quick throw it up, and we keep going like we did, and like you said, there's nothing in there saying you can't in those months.
Did you want to add anything?
No, that's fine.
So maybe for next month, if you maybe insert some of that language in the committees, that we can review it again for the second reading.
And that's the purpose of tonight's personnel meeting. We have 2 meetings in July, 2 meetings in August to get those signatures or get those approvals so that they're on. So basically, to kind of follow that suit, you're gonna have each of these committees, or that committee is still gonna have to meet twice in July and August to approve the teaching positions are the critical ones. We're making sure we got teachers in front of students come September.
Teachers and parents.
Teachers and parents, you're right, that's the thing. So that's the critical part. I just want to make sure that doesn't get missed somewhere. And I think that was the reason. I think historically, again, we're approving the positions to be filled, not necessarily approving the names for the positions. I'll leave it at that. Okay.
Is everyone comfortable if we have him come back next month with the appropriate language?
Can I make a suggestion? Are we
Absolutely.
able, as amended, can we have a first meeting on April 8th with the full board? As amended?
April.
On what?
I know, sorry, I was thinking.
Can we do what?
As amended, so with the revisions, are we able to move forward for a first reading on August 8th? I don't know if that.
I think you said second reading.
That would be second reading, right? And, well, first reading tonight.
Right, and does a full
Send it
board
to the
need
full board meeting in August, but we can suspend our policy with a 2/3 vote if we need to.
Okay,
If that's something you would want
Yes,
us to do.
yes,
We can
please.
certainly bring that up.
Thank you.
Mr. Bell?
So, just so I understand the question you're asking, I think what you're asking is, you're gonna change the language in the policy based on the feedback you got and present that to the full board, and that will count as the first reading?
That's what I was proposing.
Is that,
And then the second reading would be in September?
The second reading would be in August because we meet again on the third Thursday in August.
The third Thursday.
Don't we?
Second.
Policy does
The
not.
policy does.
Policy does, yes.
Right, so it needs 2 readings, so this is the first reading for policy, we go first reading to the board. We say second reading in policy, and then second reading it would be in September.
If we follow our policy, yes.
Okay. And, just for clarity purposes, is there an alternative way to do this, or?
I mean, if we follow our policy, that would be approved final approval would be in September.
Okay,
And then if we want to change it earlier, we would need to have a 2/3 vote of the full board to approve it in August.
oh,
Can I just ask why, like, what's the difference between August and September?
definitely different.
Like, you know what I mean, I was just
Yeah.
curious if there was a reason why you wanted it to start it so early.
About 30
No, I
days.
thought, my understanding,
About 30 days.
no,
30
I
days.
thought you were saying that, we were not going to take the first reading, to the full board on August 8th. So I was proposing that we take the first reading to the full board.
Okay.
That was my.
If someone on the committee makes a recommendation or the motion to send to the full board for first reading, that would count as the first reading.
I'm gonna make a motion to send this to the full board for first reading with amendments. My motion.
Motion by Ms. Stokes, second by Mr. Cormier. Is there any discussion?
My only concern with pushing it through so fast is the transparency part, where when people always say they want transparency, I don't think this board is trying to do anything shady, but whenever something goes by quick, I feel like that's kind of what comes across. So I would not be voting to push it past what we like to get a 2/3 vote, strictly for that reason. I think the public, they don't get publicked, they don't get, the video doesn't get posted overly quickly. I think people have a time to kind of look at it and ask questions and come if they want to. And I think the way that we have it with the first and the second is the way that I would want it to go, just so that people feel like they have a right to look at it, ask questions, and address concerns.
Any other
Well,
discussion?
I just, as a suggestion, anywhere else in our policies that would reference committee structure needs to be looked at, as far as if a policy addresses a particular, a special services committee, for instance, and we're renaming it, so that policy, all the other policies need to align as far as verbiage to the new structure. And I don't know that would have to, all those would have to go through policy committee, it's just cleaning the verbiage through, so that it all aligns.
Need some homework.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Ms. Stokes?
My only other thing is, we also follow the city charter, so there's verbiage in there from the city charter. So I don't know that it affects it to this level, but I would also just make sure that that was checked. I know it's section 29, 30, 31, and 32. 32 is school board meetings. I don't think, as I'm reading it, that it has anything, but I would just double check it, just to be clear.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. And anything else under other?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Okay, motion by Ms. Stokes, second by Mr. Cormier. All those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.